the two major things that have come up, and you'll probably have heard me mention it in the podcast, and we're running a program on this because it was a really big aha for me, is this idea that the first four functions are in a descending order of certainty. And when I realized that, and I think we even did an entire podcast episode on personality types and uncertainty, that feeling of uncertainty is so corrosive for people. Like, we hate feeling uncertain. Certainty is a security blanket for us. And there's a part of us, and I would call it that fourth function, the inferior, we call it the 3-year-old. It's also called the anima or animus, many names. But that part of us is a place that it doesn't matter what work we do there. It doesn't matter how good we get at it. It doesn't matter the skill development. It doesn't matter the amount of integration work. The babadook of it is that it is always going to carry with it a sense of uncertainty. Like, are we doing this right? Or like, am I doing it like everybody else? And unlike the third function, which is a place of uncertainty, but we can calm ourselves down if we get approval from others that go, no, you did that well. And so that's why we do the dog and pony show in that third tertiary function. We're like, we're doing it right? And so we like present it to other people, like little children showing their toys, right? And they're like, yeah, that's really good. And it's like, yeah, right? So that's the place of that third function. But that fourth function is just always going to be uncertain. So that's one of the reasons, by the way, why people say it's the beginning of the shadow, because we have a tendency to just not want to look at it because it creates that unsettling feeling of uncertainty. And that means that it's a function that is incredibly important for us to build a relationship with, and that we are always going to feel uncomfortable in that building of the relationship. So how do you reconcile that, right? How does one reconcile that this imperative, important part of who they are is always going to carry with it the unsettling feeling of uncertainty? And the two things that came up for me was, one, we have to make peace with uncertainty. We just have to, right? Because it's not going anywhere. The only time it goes someplace is when we turn our heads away from it. It doesn't actually leave. It's just we're not paying attention to the feeling. But it's like that. But there's a bunch of content there that we need to look at. So we have to look uncertainty in the face, and we have to make peace with it. And that fourth function gives us an opportunity to have a part of ourselves that we are identified with, that we understand is important for us, that we intrinsically, instinctively recognize as a fire inside of us. Linda Behrens calls it our aspiration. Robert Johnson calls it the inspirer of life. And so we know we have to have it, but every time we look at it, am I doing it right? What am I missing? So we have to make peace with uncertainty in order to have an experience of whole self. And that led me to the second realization, which is whether by design or accident, that is really good for us because it gives us access to a sense of humility. If we have a part of us that we always ask if I'm doing this right, we can never get too big for our britches, right? It's like an enforced humility packet inside of us. And humility is imperative for it allows us to become the kind of person other people want to hang out with, right? If we're not humble, if we don't have a sense of like owning our imperfections and owning that there's, some stuff we're just never going to be good at, and making peace with that and resting into it, then we're the kind of people nobody wants to hang out with, right? Because we're arrogant. And so there's a part of us that like making peace with uncertainty and that deeply unsettling part is actually humanizing. And that relationship is, again, whether by design or accident, it's a really important piece to Robert Johnson says in the book, that our anima or animus, that fourth function, we need to create a relationship with that's almost like two hands pressing together. And that means getting as close as humanly possible to a part of ourselves that makes us feel deeply uncomfortable. And if we can do that and hang there and we can make that happen for ourselves, then we bridge we create a bridge to all sorts of content that is hard for us to look at, but introduces us to the whole package. So so that's been a big aha for me, is making peace with uncertainty, is and allowing ourselves the experience of humility with that, is how we get to know who we truly are. And it's how other people get to know who we are as well.